OpenWorker is completely free, and Claude Cowork runs up to $200 a month. Pick wrong, and you're either bleeding money every month or walking away from an 80.9% SWE bench verified score that no open model currently touches. AI agents are shipping faster than ever, and the cost and capability gap between these two just got significant. So I ran Claude Cowork versus OpenWorker across 5 head-to-head tests to see who actually wins. The cost tests will either save you serious money every month or cost you a frontier coding benchmark you can't get anywhere else. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And every number in this video comes from official docs and published model cards that both companies actually stand behind. This is for anyone running real automation workloads and trying to figure out whether a $20 to $200 subscription actually beats a free local tool. Test 1. Cost. The moment your tool budget gets reviewed and someone asks why you're paying for an AI agent subscription, you need a real answer, so here it is. Claude Cowork runs from $20 to $200 a month depending on usage tier, and OpenWorker starts at 0, which is the first thing that decides whether this comparison even matters for your situation. What I looked at here is pretty straightforward. Claude Cowork Pro is $20 a month, or $17 if you pay annually. Max 5x is $100, Max 20x is $200, and OpenWorker is free under an MIT license with no paid tiers for the software itself. The honest caveat is that OpenWorker isn't actually free because you're paying your model provider per token on top of it. So the gap is smaller than it looks if you're a heavy user, because OpenWorker's total cost depends entirely on which model API keys you bring. Run Claude on the backend, and your per token bill could actually match or beat a Cowork subscription. But pick something cheap like DeepSeek R2, and you're probably spending way less, while Cowork bundles model access, so there's no surprise. Bill from Anthropic on top. OpenWorker takes the cost test, and even with per token API costs on top, the software itself is free under MIT, while Claude Cowork starts at $20 and climbs to $200 a month. So I was expecting the bundled subscription to make Cowork competitive on total cost. But for most use cases, OpenWorker is still cheaper, which puts OpenWorker up 1-0. Test 2. Coding benchmark performance. 80.9% on SWE bench verified is the score Claude Code with Opus 4.5 just hit, and it's the first time any model has broken the 80% mark on that benchmark. So if your agent fails a real coding task, you're not just losing time, you're losing the entire output of that session, which means raw coding capability is not a soft metric. What surprised me here is how one-sided the benchmark data actually is. Claude Cowork runs on Opus 4.5, which scored 80.9% on SWE bench verified, with Opus 4.8 hitting 84.6 on Terminal Bench 2.1 and 71.9 on Program Bench, while OpenWorker publishes no coding benchmark scores at all because it's a harness, not a model, though its ceiling does depend on whatever you bring to it. Claude Cowork takes coding benchmarks, and it's not close on the published numbers. Opus 4.5 at 80.9%. SWE bench is a frontier result, and OpenWorker simply has no comparable figure. So I was expecting model flexibility to make this a tighter call, but there's nothing to compare against, and that ties the overall count 1-1. Test 3. Speed. When a client is waiting on a deliverable and your agent is still spinning after 2 minutes, you feel it. And speed matters even more when you're chaining tasks together or running a brief in real time. So the fact that one of these tools gives you concrete response times in writing, while the other publishes nothing, is pretty much the whole test right there. I looked at every speed figure both tools publish, and the split is stark. OpenWorker's cloud models come back in 2 to 3 seconds for simple tasks and 10 to 30 seconds for complex multi-tool chains, and it can produce a customer brief in under 30 seconds, while Cowork publishes no speed metrics at all, though it does support unattended batch processing, which is a real advantage for long-running jobs. OpenWorker takes the speed test, purely because it's the only one that actually publishes numbers. 2 to 30 seconds per task is documented, Claude Cowork's speed is just unverified, and I couldn't find any published throughput data for it, which puts OpenWorker ahead 2-1. Alright, so we still have context limits and deployment architecture to get through, and both of those could flip the decision for you depending on your workflow, because context limits in particular matter a lot if you're feeding large code bases into your agent, and the numbers between these two tools are not what you'd expect. Test 4. Context and output limits. The moment your agent cuts off mid-task because it hit a loop cap or ran out of context, you lose the whole output and start over, so this matters. Claude Cowork lists a 200,000 token context window across all paid plans. OpenWorker caps a single turn at 12 model-to-tool iterations, and those are genuinely different constraints where which one hurts you depends entirely on the job you're running. What I found here is that both tools are measuring different things entirely. Claude Cowork has a 200K context window across all paid plans, which is a lot of room for big code bases, and Anthropic doubled the Claude Code 5-hour usage limits back in May 2026, while OpenWorker caps a single turn at 12 tool iterations to stop runaway loops. And I couldn't find a published context window figure for it at all. The hard truth is, these are not really the same metric. A 200K context window and a 12-step iteration cap are solving different problems, where Cowork's window matters when you're feeding it a massive codebase, and OpenWorker's loop cap matters when you want the agent to stop itself before going off the rails. So one isn't better in the abstract, and it just depends on what you're asking the tool to do. Context and output limits is a tie. Cowork's 200K window and OpenWorker's 12-step loop cap are genuinely different design choices for different failure modes. There's no clean winner, and the score stays at OpenWorker 2, Claude Cowork 1 with 1 tied. Test 5. Deployment and modality. A solo operator handling sensitive client data who can't afford a breach needs to know exactly where their prompts are going, because cloud-based tools send everything to a vendor's server, while local, first tools keep it on your machine, and that's a compliance question that can make the whole cost comparison irrelevant. What I saw here is that both tools cover the basics, but in very different ways. Claude Cowork runs on web, desktop, and mobile beta across macOS, Windows, Chrome OS, and Linux, so it's got more surfaces, while OpenWorker is local first on macOS and Windows, built on a 4-layer local stack, and can run fully offline with Allama, and Cowork is a no-code GUI that's genuinely easier to get started with, while OpenWorker needs some setup like API keys and a local server. Deployment and modality is a tie. Cowork wins on platform reach and ease of use. OpenWorker wins on privacy and model flexibility. Neither one sweeps the other, and that keeps the final count at OpenWorker 2, Claude Cowork 1, with 2 tests tied. Claude Cowork wins on raw coding performance. Opus 4.5 at 80.9%. SWE Bench verified is a frontier result no open model currently matches, and it also wins on accessibility with a no-code GUI that works on web, desktop, and mobile, plus unattended automation that keeps running tasks even when you close your laptop. OpenWorker wins on cost, privacy, and flexibility. It's free under MIT with no subscription and no lock-in. You can bring your own keys for 30+ models or run fully offline with Allama. Your data stays on your machine, and it's deliverable focused with documented response times of 2 to 30 seconds per task. Okay, so here's the decision rule. If you need frontier coding performance and a no-code GUI you can open in a browser right now, go with Claude Cowork because that 80.9% SWE bench score is real, and it costs you $20 to $200 a month to access it. But if you need free, private, and model-flexible automation that ships finished deliverables, OpenWorker is the clear pick. $0. Local. 30+ models. If you want to see how OpenWorker stacks up against another free agent, I've got a full breakdown called OpenClaw versus Claude Code that goes deep on exactly this kind of cost versus capability trade-off with hands-on results you can actually use.